Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. It is the end of January, so it is time for a reading wrap up. I have read 7 books this month. I did not read all these ones. I just have one of these books here for showing how cute the covers are. And some books I did read on my Kindle, which, by the way, I did get a new Kindle. I'm both sad and happy. Happy because I have the Matcha Kindle. I do have ads on my Kindle because I'm not paying for Adless ever again. And sometimes you can get the customer service reps to remove it for free. I have not found one that was willing to do it this time around, and that was a really short lifespan for a Kindle. First Kindle that I ever got, I got in 2012 or 2013. It didn't start not working as well until 2020, maybe 2021. So I was really disappointed in the lifespan of Drax. So January treated me pretty good overall when it came down to my reads. I'm really off to a great start this year. My rating system tends to be a little bit more lenient because I am a did I have a good time or not reader. I am a vibes girly through and through. Okay, let's get into what I read. So the first book that I read was Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This is one of the book clubs that I host, the Spice Girls book club for January. I host 4 different book clubs right now. The writing in Quicksilver and the way that Callie tells a story just tickled my brain in such a good way. I love a main character that is strong despite what they've been through, a survivor, and Saris is very much that. She's also opinionated in the best possible way. I especially enjoyed the addition of the fox. Sometimes I don't like when there's an animal companion, but I just really like the fox. Quicksilver has so many good elements in it. It's an epic fantasy romance. It's got fae, humans, and vampires, battles, alchemy and magic, found family. There is some spice. It's not excessively heavy, and while there is spice in this book, it makes sense to the overall story. A spoiler-free synopsis of this book would be Saris lives in a world where water is more precious than gold. Literally, ugh. It is. So the story opens up to Saris in a bit of an altercation with a guardian. A guardian is a term used for the selected guards of the queen, and her goal is to steal something of value, which ends up being the guardian's gauntlet, escape back to the third ward where she lives, and eventually fence it off and hopefully find a better life for her and her brother. Things don't go according to plan, and she finds herself on the brink of execution before she unintentionally reopens a Quicksilver gateway, freeing King Fisher. Things only escalate from there when Kingfisher takes Saris back with him to Fae territory because she's an alchemist and they are in desperate need of one. She did not know that she was an alchemist. She just knew that she had the ability to manipulate metal. I gave this book 4 stars. I did not want to put it down. It had a lot of the elements that I really love in a book, and I will be continuing this series. I'd also like to thank Forever for sending me a finished copy of Quicksilver. It came at the right time, and I'm very happy because the hold times at the library were insane for this book. Then I read A Venom Dark and Sweet by Judy. This was another one of my book club picks. We read it in A Hobbit's Guide to Adventure. It is the second book in the duology, and I didn't like it as much as I did the first. But before I carry on about that, let me just show you the covers. Book 1, Book 2. Anyways, I feel like I did not like Book 2 as much as I did the first book because the things that I loved in the first book weren't really a part of the second book. Book 1 has political intrigue, challenges, diving into tea magic, and book 2 is suddenly Ning can't use her magic because there's a hovering dark entity that will find her if she uses her tea magic. Tea magic is what really lured me into this series. I liked the uniqueness of it, and I liked how it was described. Tea magic really fit in with the fact that the author loves to talk about food and describe food, the taste, the texture, the smells. And I think because we stepped away from that in book 2, I didn't like it as much as the first one. And I'm not going to talk about what happens in book 2 because if I talk about what happens in book 2, then that's going to spoil book 1. I rated book 2 3.5 stars. I will be picking up her other books. I do have one. It's on my TBR card as a potential pull. However, I'm unsure if I will reread this duology, and I think that's important to say because I am a chronic rereader. I have read some of my favorite books like so an embarrassing amount of times. And if I decide at the end that I'm not going to reread this duology, I am going to post it on my Pango because I don't like to keep books that I don't plan on rereading because that's money I could put into other books and enjoying other media and letting someone else have these books at a more affordable cost than buying them new. The next book I read was To Touch a Reaper by R.R. Mangold. This is what it looks like. It's so pretty. Her husband did the illustrations for this book, which I think is really cool. The book club pick for another book club that I host, the Indie Book Nook. That is a book club exclusive to independently published books. If you are an indie author, you can submit your book to be read in the book club. I go over the form every once in a while, and then I have like a master list of books that we might read in the club. I pick the books that are read 6 months in advance because sometimes it can be hard to get your hands on some of these books. And sometimes people want to get like signed copies. So if you are interested in getting your book potentially read in a book club, you can submit it in the form. I will put the form in the description of this video. To Touch a Reaper follows Jimmy, who's a nurse, and Mila at Reaper as they learn the truth as to why Jimmy has the ability to see her when no one should be able to. Mila has been around for literal centuries as a Reaper with the sole purpose of collecting the souls of the recently passed and eventually unloading them to get to where they need to be. She stores them. Anna sent me this in a little PR package with the book, but she stores them in her soul ring, which looks something like this. This is a decommissioned soul ring. I believe it's like it can hold 50 souls, and then she takes them to a remote area and they cross through like a gateway. Jimmy spots Mila in a room near one of his patients, which is odd for Jimmy seeing her there because it's late. He works the night shift. And if she works there, he doesn't know who she is. And Mila's shocked because he spoke to her. He can see her. She said something back. And he responded. Curiosity strikes Mila, and she goes off in search of answers. Reapers are never seen, except by the souls that they are to collect, and other Reapers and death themselves cannot experience touch, and they cannot experience emotion. And out of the blue, this man can not only see her, talk to her, but touch her. It's not something that she wants to give up, and she finds herself more than fascinated with this man, and honestly, I am too. I am going to put a deep emphasis on this book is a love story. Love story. Say it with me. Love story. Because the heartbreak is so unreal. But the final sentence is like, damn, I guess I have some hope. I have cried during both my reads of this book. There's a moment where we discover what the special connection is, and every time I am a mess. I am a mess. I cannot stress enough how much reading this book is worth it. I gave this book 5 stars. It was just as amazing the second time around. It's Raina's debut novel. She just released another book called No Shade in the Desert, which is a sapphic book. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I'm currently on a no spending budget. Me being able to replace my Kindle was just my partner being overly gracious, because we bought a house in late summer. It's old, it needs a lot of work, and that same day that Kindle broke, shortly after we bought the Kindle, 2 of our bathroom sinks needed to be replaced, as well as the piping. So I can't buy anything unless it's on sale, or like one of the apps that I use for walking has given me a gift card, and then I can buy something. Then I immersive listened to the graphic audio of Fourth Wing while reading it on my Kindle. I've owned both the physical and the ebook copy of Fourth Wing from the very beginning, but again, I didn't want to touch it because of the hype that was surrounding it. You have a library card. You might have access to the graphic audio to borrow, depending on your library's catalog, through Hoopla. And if you don't know what Hoopla is, it is another app that you can install and use with your library card. Selections vary per library. Like some libraries are going to have more, some libraries are going to have less. You'll find quite a bit of popular books on there. The catalog's not as extensive as what Libby would be. The difference between the two is Hoopla has instant access to books. There is a limit to how much you can borrow in a single month. I have not reached that limit, but it's a great way to read quite a bit of popular books on there, whether it's the audiobook or the ebook. You can also find some great indie books. Like if an indie book is not a part of Kindle Unlimited and you want to read it, always check Hoopla first. They might be enrolled into the program. It's something that authors can opt into if they use Drafted Digital, which is a free service. I have my own book, Fate of a Laundry, enrolled in the program. I like it a lot more than having it in KU. It makes it so people don't have to pay for a subscription to read the book, and it helps people use libraries more. Fourth Wing is an adult fantasy book with a romance subplot. It's set place primarily in a war college. This book follows Violet, who wanted to be a scribe like her father. She was actually given the education to be possibly one of the best scribes. Her mother doesn't want any of her children to be anything but a writer. So she's forced to join the writer's quadrant on conscription day. And conscription day is a volunteer basis unless you're one of the unlucky few bearing the mark of a traitor. Those that bear the mark of a traitor had parents that were a part of the rebellion. We also learn that Violet has a brother that died and an older sister that has already graduated from the college. And we meet the sister really right away in the book. She gives Violet some advice before sending her off to cross the parapet. A little bit more than advice. She gives her better shoes that have grip on them and armor, like a chest piece made of dragon scales from her dragon, which she had the scales shrunk down from another person who with a signet that has the ability to shrink. These will help her not only cross the parapet, but keep her safe during her time at Basgiath. Violet is also described as being very small and frail and fragile, which is not something one would expect from a dragon rider, and there's a lot of doubt that a dragon would bond with someone like her. It also creates an additional target on her back, not only for the marked ones that might want revenge against Violet for what her mother did, but also future and current riders that might want to take out the weak link. But Violet is smart, and she uses her knowledge to her advantage to help level the playing field. There's a lot of characters in this book, and it was a bit overwhelming, but I do really think that the graphic audio helped me learn the characters easier. The characters that I caught on to first outside of Violet was Rhiannon, Dane, and Xaden. And I will also say my immediate thought on Dane was, girly pop, I know you might like him, but he is not for you. I felt like Dane had a lot of learning and growing to do because, in my opinion, a man that does not let a woman push herself to be the best that she can be and continues to doubt that she can should not be with that woman. It doesn't matter if your intention is to protect them and that's what you want for them. You see them as this person who struggles with all this stuff and you're just trying to protect her. It does not matter. End of argument. I loved how deliciously dark this college is, if you really think about it. What, 1/4 of the students survive their first year, and you still have to have a dragon choose to bond with you. And even if a dragon chooses to bond with you, someone who didn't get bonded to a dragon might still try to unalive you to get yours. The book's main relationship is straight, but there is some queer representation from the side characters. I also really liked the fact that the main character does have a physical disability. It was really interesting to see how she adapts to her surroundings by finding ways to make it easier for her. I loved that Taryn thinks of her limitations and comes up with solutions as well. Considering dragons say the answer to no human throughout the series, it's kind of super sweet. The vibes of this series gives How to Train Your Dragon. I rated this 5 stars, and I am telling you, if you haven't read this book, or you have read this book but haven't read the graphic audio yet, do yourself a favor and do. And then, of course, I was still wanting to stay in this series, so I borrowed the graphic audio of Iron Flame and bought the ebook and moved right on. I may or may not get a physical copy. Again, on a budget. But I wouldn't be mad to have the physical copies of this series on my shelf. Like, it's really good, and I will read it again. I'm not going to say much about this one since it is the second book, and I don't want to give away too much that happens in the first, but I was blown away by Iron Flame. It boiled my blood in the best way, and I just truly loved it. It's darker than book one, and it has less of a YA feel to it. It really showcased more of Violet's resilience and strength, and we learned so much. I cried the most reading this one out of the entire series. I was so emotionally attached to so many characters, and I am ashamed to admit that, like, even the characters that we met like 30 seconds beforehand, I gotta get better at not getting attached to characters, especially characters when they're a part of a longer series, because you don't know what the author has in store for them. I rated Iron Flame 5 stars. After I finished Iron Flame, I jumped straight into Onyx Storm. This was my least favorite. The beginning was really slow for me, and I was getting a bit of whiplash with all like the characters being constantly mentioned. And I think that also attributed to the fact that I didn't have the graphic audio listening to alongside to help me kind of learn who was who. I did rate this book 3.5 stars because not a lot of it really stuck out for me. And because that first half was so slow, the ending was fantastic. I loved it. Just that beginning, I was so bored. I am going to listen to the graphic audio when it comes out. Hopefully, it'll be available on Hoopla or my library, and I can get my hands on it right away. And I'm going to see if that enhances my experience with the book. Just for funsies, I did add up the amount of things I highlighted and annotated for each book in the Empyreon series so far. So here's what I had. In Fourth Wing, I had 145 highlights and annotations. Iron Flame, I had 110. And Onyx Storm, I had 30. Quite a difference in the third one. And I'm hoping that will just rise when I do get my hands on the graphic audio. The final book I read this month was A Forgery of Fate by Elizabeth Lim. Lim is one of my auto-buy authors. She is a fantastic storyteller. A Forgery of Fate is a Beauty and the Beast reimagining, and it's set in the same realm as Six Crimson Cranes. This book follows True, who had to turn to a life as a con artist in the form of forging paintings and help take care of her sister and mom. Her sisters also work, but her mom has accumulated a lot of debt due to bad habits. She wasn't always like a bad habits mom. When True and her sisters were younger, their father was lost at sea, and her mother sought out answers, and somewhere along the line she started gambling for answers and would put way too much at risk, and it really affected the girls. They lost their home, and it did get worse than just losing their home. True stumbled upon this man one day, and he realized that she has an eye for detail and offered her a job as an art forger. One day, he notices that she added a detail in a forgery that wasn't initially in there and thought that it looked really great, and tried to encourage her to paint her own works instead of doing forgery. She has real talent, and she declines because she can't risk the money. She needs the money that she's making from these forgeries. It's the only way to keep food in their bellies. But when she returns home, she finds her mother in a very real, very serious debt and a very tight deadline. So there's something special about True. When she was younger, she was gifted a paintbrush from her father, and whenever she would paint a painting, she would say magic paintbrush. It was like a game her and her sisters and her dad played. And as she got older, she started to notice like a tingling in her fingers. And when she would draw, when she had this tingle, the paintings that she drew would become true. And so she used that to draw what she wants to be the best painting ever to hopefully be able to pay off this debt, because it's like, I believe the time frame to get this large sum of money was like 24 hours, and if they didn't do it, these bad people were going to take our sister and use her in ways that are not good. Everything happens so fast, and True finds herself on the run, not only from the gangsters that her mom owes money to, but the law, because she was found out as a forger. This is when she stumbles into the Demon Prince, who isn't a demon prince, but a dragon lord, and they make an agreement. She has to pretend to be his heavenly match, travel with him to the dragon realm, which is underwater, and draw a specific painting for him. And in turn, he will make sure that her family is cared for and help in the quest of finding answers about her father. This book has it all: an immersive world that is just fun to imagine, a storyline that makes you feel connected with the characters, dragons, an underwater kingdom, which really gave vibes of like The Little Mermaid. Like if you were to experience like Ariel while she was underwater, like the opening scene, like creature wise, because not like view wise, because view wise the underwater kingdom is in shambles. The magic system is also really fascinating, and best of all, Alang, who is the dragon lord, can conjure pockets for True's dresses. Pockets. I rated this book 5 stars, and special thanks to NetGalley and Random House for always gracing me with an early copy of Lim's work. You are real ones. That is it for my reading wrap up for January. I'm still figuring out what my TBR is going to be like for the month of February, but I am so excited to get some more reads in. I feel like January was just a great start to the year in terms of reading, and I'm looking forward to what else I get to venture into.